Hello everyone, welcome back to our e-learning class. Today we will continue our discussion about the solar system. We want to discuss more about planets. Are you excited? I hope so. Before going further, let's set our goal first. So at the end of this discussion, you should be able to identify planets in our solar system and its characteristics. How many planets do we have in our solar system? Is Pluto still a planet? Can you name all the planets? The most interesting things that we should know about the solar system are planets. Now we have 8 planets in our solar system since Pluto doesn't exist anymore as a planet. Let's look at them, starting with the ones closest to the Sun, going to the furthest. The closest planet to the Sun is Mercury. Then Venus, the planet that we live in, the Earth, Mars, Jupiter as the largest planet, Saturn, Uranus, and then the furthest is Neptune. As you can see, Mercury, Venus, Earth, and Mars are closer to the Sun and also smaller than Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune. Our planets in our solar system are divided into two types, inner and outer planets. First, the inner planets. The 4 inner or terrestrial planets have dense, rocky compositions, few or no moons, and no ring systems. 3 of the 4 inner planets, Venus, Earth, and Mars, have substantial atmospheres. All have impact craters and tectonic surface features such as rift valleys and volcanoes. The term inner planet should not be confused with an inferior planet, which designs those planets which are closer to the Sun than Earth, which are Mercury and Venus. Mercury is the closest planet to the Sun and the smallest planet. Because it is so close to the Sun, Mercury gets very hot. During the day, the temperature on Mercury can get as high as 430 degrees Celsius, and at night it can get very cold as minus 175 degrees Celsius. This happens because there are no clouds and very little air surrounding the planet. The atmosphere helps to keep a planet warm and when the sun is not shining. Mercury's very thin atmosphere cannot keep the planet warm at night. Mercury has no natural satellites. The surface of Mercury is hard, rocky, and covered with craters. It has a cliff and valley just as Earth does. There is also no liquid water on Mercury. Venus is the second planet from the Sun. We can call Venus our neighbor because it is the closest planet to our Earth. Venus is the hottest planet in the solar system, even though it is farther from the Sun than Mercury. It can get as hot as 480 degrees Celsius on Venus. It is because Venus has a thick atmosphere. The air around the planet is mostly a gas called carbon dioxide. The carbon dioxide traps the heat from the Sun on the planet's surface. This is called the greenhouse effect. There are craters, mountains, volcanoes, and valleys on the surface of Venus. Venus also is a very dry planet. It is covered by thick clouds containing water, but Venus clouds contain sulfuric acid. These clouds are so thick that astronomers on Earth cannot see the surface of the planet with their telescopes. All about Earth had been discussed in the previous video. Did you still remember? Watch the video again. Mars is the 4th planet from the Sun. It is smaller than Earth and Venus. Mars can get very cold. The The temperature can get as low as minus 130 degrees Celsius. In a few places, it can be a pleasant 30 degrees Celsius during the day. In most places, it never gets above freezing. Mars is a hard and rocky planet. The soil on Mars contains iron oxide or rust, which makes the ground look red. This is why Mars is often called the red planet. Sometimes the red dirt is stirred up by strong winds. These huge dust storms can last months. Mars has mountains, canyons, volcanoes, and craters. There is no liquid water on the surface of Mars now. There may be frozen water under the surface. There is ice on the surface at the coldest places. Mars has an atmosphere made almost entirely of carbon dioxide and traces of nitrogen and other gases. The second type is the outer planets. The four outer planets or gas giants, and sometimes also called as Jovian planets, collectively make up 99% of the mass known to orbit the Sun. Jupiter and Saturn's atmospheres are largely hydrogen and helium. Uranus and Neptune's atmospheres have a higher percentage of ices, such as water, ammonia, and methane. Some astronomers suggest they belong in their own category, ice giants. All four gas giants have rings, although only Saturn's ring system is easily observed from Earth. The term outer planet should not be confused with superior planet, which designs planet outside Earth's orbit. Jupiter is the fifth planet from the Sun. It is the largest planet in our solar system. All that astronomers can see when they look at Jupiter through a telescope are the tops of the clouds in its atmosphere. These clouds are made of frozen gases such as ammonia and water. These colorful clouds cover the entire planet, making it look white, brown, red, and orange. Jupiter's Great Red Spot is a storm which has been going on for over 300 years. The atmosphere is mainly made of two gases, hydrogen and helium. Deep in the atmosphere, the gases are pressed together so much that they turn into liquid. It would be impossible to land a spacecraft on Jupiter, because a spacecraft would be crushed. Jupiter is icy and rocky moons. It is surrounded by a thin ring. Jupiter also has 63 known satellites. Jupiter's four largest moons are called the Galilean moons. They were discovered by Galileo, the first person to use a telescope to look at the heavens. They are Ganymede, Callisto, Io, and Europa. These four moons are very large. Some are even larger than the smallest planets. Jupiter's moon, Ganymede, is the largest moon in our solar system. Saturn is the sixth planet from the Sun. It is famous for its extensive ring system and has similarities to Jupiter, such as its atmospheric composition. On the top of Saturn, we can see the clouds that are made of frozen gases, such as ammonia and water. But Saturn's clouds are not colorful as those covering Jupiter. Saturn's atmosphere is mainly made of two gases, hydrogen and helium. The pressure of the atmosphere is so great that a spacecraft would be crushed too. Saturn has the most spectacular rings in the solar system. These rings are made of billions of small chunks of ice and rock. Each of these pieces is like a tiny moonlet that orbits Saturn just as the big moons do. Even though these white rings stretch out far beyond Saturn's cloud tops, they are probably less than 30 meters thick. Saturn has 60 known satellites. Saturn's largest moon, Titan, is the second largest moon in the solar system. Uranus is the seventh planet from the Sun. When astronomers look at Uranus through a telescope, they see some clouds and the atmosphere above the clouds. These clouds are made of frozen methane. Methane is a gas which we use for cooking and heating on Earth. The clouds of Uranus appear bluish-green because of the methane gas in the atmosphere above them. The atmosphere below the clouds is mainly made of hydrogen and helium. Uranus has a much colder core than the other gas giants and radiates very little heat into space. That is why it is the coldest planet in our solar system. Uranus has 27 known satellites, the largest ones being Titania, Oberon, Umbriel, Ariel, and Miranda. The moons are probably made of ice and rocks. The furthest planet from the Sun is Neptune. The temperature on Neptune above the cloud tops is minus 215 degrees Celsius. The clouds of Neptune are made of frozen methane. These clouds appear blue because of the methane in the atmosphere above the clouds. The atmosphere below the clouds is mainly made of hydrogen and helium. Neptune has a great dark spot. This is probably a storm similar to the great spot on Jupiter. It radiates more internal heat, but not as much as Jupiter or Saturn. Neptune has 13 known satellites. The largest Triton is geologically active with geysers of liquid nitrogen. Triton is the only large satellite with a retrograde orbit. Before we end our discussion today, let's summarize our lesson. Let's read it together. First, planets are categorized as inner and outer planets. Second, we have 8 planets in our solar system, which are Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune. Third, all planets but Mercury and Venus have satellites. Fourth, the smallest planet is Mercury and the largest planet is Jupiter. Fifth, Jupiter and Neptune have the great dark spot. 6. Saturn has the most spectacular rings. 7. The hottest planet is Venus and the coldest planet is Uranus. Since we already discussed all about planets, let's try to answer some questions. I already assigned it in the Google Classroom. Thank you and see you.